Hello everyone, this is episode 4 of Ryan's Report by Ryan Hain, presented by Afternoon Analytics. 2022 marks the 4th year that online sportsbooks have started to become legal in the United States. Let's see how it's going. First, let's start with a little background. On May 14th in 2018, the Supreme Court struck down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992, ruling that the law is not consistent with the Constitution and that states are free to establish their own sports gambling laws in the absence of a federally regulated system. As of this year, 31 states, including Washington, D.C., have live legal online sports betting. Live legal means that single-game sports betting is legally available to consumers through retail and/or online sportsbooks within these states. For the rest of this presentation, I'll be looking at 8 key states that have handled 58% of sports betting in June: Arizona, Connecticut, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania. And I believe in all of these states a pattern has emerged. Every state starts differently, but there's usually a sportsbook that invests a lot into their launch once a state becomes legal. For example, Caesars Sportsbook handled the most bets of any sportsbook in the first month of legal online wagering in New York in January, taking 38% of a record $1.68 billion, the most money ever wagered in a state in a single month. But it only took a month for FanDuel Sportsbook to take hold as the top dog in New York. This seems to be the story over and over again. I believe there's a pattern with 3 tiers, and this picture is relevant to the 8 states I mentioned previously. As you can see, there are 3 tiers that seem to take shape in the pie chart. FanDuel and DraftKings, which are the 2 biggest, dominate with over 60% of overall wagers. Next are the 2 casinos, MGM and Caesars, hovering around 10%. And finally, there are a variety of regional and other sportsbooks such as PointsBet, Rivers, and Barstool. So why does this pattern keep happening? Sportsbooks have spent millions and millions of dollars trying to become familiar with sports fans in anticipation of legalization. But FanDuel and DraftKings have a unique advantage. They have been in the daily fantasy space for years. While companies like Caesars and MGM have familiar brands, FanDuel and DraftKings have been in the sports fans' pockets for years. Other brands cannot compete with this head start and the familiarity with the consumer base of sports fans. All of the sportsbooks have partnered with numerous media outlets which have helped, but overcoming DraftKings and FanDuel will take years in my opinion. Finally, I have some points and questions about the future of sports betting in the United States. First, I believe that the pattern I mentioned previously of FanDuel and DraftKings continuing to be the top dogs will stay the same for the foreseeable future. A question I have is, how will team and league partnerships shape things in the future? Numerous teams have begun to incorporate sportsbooks partners into their stadiums, such as the Washington Capitals. It will be fascinating to see how teams' partners will affect the sportsbook landscape in the years to come, as team and league loyalties can definitely influence fans. Something else is that sports betting will only become bigger and bigger at this point as more people join and more states legalize it. And finally, I'm also interested to see, as it does become bigger, what steps will the government or states take to regulate sports betting? Gambling can become an addiction, so it is important to see that there are limits placed to avoid that. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Ryan's Report, presented by Afternoon Analytics. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions about the legalization of sports betting in the comments. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.